So I'm really excited to share something with you before we jump into the main video. As many of you know, we moved a few months ago, and part of that moving was me moving into this like super new, awesome, amazing workspace. But what you might not know is I actually condensed 4 different offices into making this office where I do all of my work from. I had my office at the church, which you remember from old videos. I had my office at the house, which you might remember from older videos. And then I had an old office at the church that I still use for storage, and I also would go and hide out and work in there, which you might remember from even older videos. And I had this little cubby workspace at my house that was just more book storage. I had a small desk in there. It's where I used to record podcasts from. So all 4 of those offices really were kind of condensed into this room that I'm standing in right now. And some folks have asked for a new office tour, and I haven't done it yet because this office actually isn't done because this space needs renovating. This is actually a really cool small pool house that is part of our new house. It's actually a standing build. Let me show it to you real quick though, but you'll see this place needs some work if you can't tell. And let me show you what showed up today. That big, huge dumpster. I'm gutting this whole room this weekend, and I'm going to build out this room to be a kitchen, because if you don't know already, if you don't follow me on Instagram, go follow me first. I cook a lot. I love to cook. It's probably my favorite hobby that has nothing to do with ministry. And so I'm renovating this just kind of gross, old, stinky kitchen space to being a second kitchen, but also this room is going to be, I'm gonna call it my morning office, where I kind of study and fall in love. This is like my devotional space. It's literally a physical separation between like work Jesus Bible stuff and personal Jesus Bible stuff. So you'll see this room more in the future, and then I'll do an office tour of the office and probably this. So let's get back into why I think you need to be using cheap journaling Bibles. I'm Chad Brooks. I'm a pastor here in Louisiana, and I make videos about the Bible, the spiritual life, and the everyday rhythms of a pastor. And today I want to talk to you primarily about why you need to be using cheap journaling Bibles, but I'm also going to be talking about this. This is my newest Bible. This is the Dayspring Illustrating Bible in New International Version, and this is just the Gospels, just Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. 3 movements in this conversation today, and the first one is this. Dayspring as a Bible publisher. Now, I did a little bit of internet research, did some looking around, and from what I can tell, Dayspring makes these sorts of Bibles in 3 translations: the New International Version, the New Living Translation, and the Christian Standard Bible. Now, 3 interesting things. These 3 translations are owned by 3 different groups. Now, the NIV is owned by HarperCollins, and you might mainly see that in the Zondervan imprint. The New Living Translation is owned by Tyndale House, and Tyndale does that. And the Christian Standard Bible is owned by Holman, which is a subsidiary of B&H. A couple interesting things. All 3 of these translations are really easy to read. All 3 of them pretty much fall under my personal idea of using a properly translated, gender-inclusive translation, especially in the New Testament with the brothers and sisters things. But what's interesting is all 3 of these they don't have anything similar together. And it's the research I did this morning for like 15 minutes, but I'd say it's 15 minutes of good, solid research. There's not a relationship between these 3 publishing houses or Dayspring. Dayspring is actually a subsidiary of Hallmark. I was going to tell you before this that Dayspring was like the Christian version of Hallmark, and then I realized Hallmark owns Dayspring, so it literally is the Christian version of Hallmark. And I can't find a relationship between the 4 of these. And Dayspring, they sell some ESV journaling Bibles, but I don't think any of them are specific versions like this one is, because this literally says Dayspring NIV. This is an official Dayspring thing. So it's just interesting that these Bibles, and they have them in Gospels, they have it in just Psalms, and then they have a whole Bible version. And the whole Bible version is like $50. So I would not call that cheap necessarily, but it's not expensive for what it is. That's the first movement, is these translations in this Bible. It's interesting. Like I said, it's just interesting. The second thing, this edition, and this is not going to be a Bible review in the least bit, but what I will tell you a couple things about this is, but a friend of mine said, hey, what do you think about these? Because I was lamenting about having a certain type of Bible for journaling and for note-taking. You know, it has a nice feel to the cover. It has this like faux leather thing that, as far as faux leather goes, you know, it's not that bad at all. It's also big and wide. I measured this. This is pushing 10 inches right here. So when you open up this whole Bible out, it's a big Bible. It's a big thing. I like how I square, and so when you fold square out, you get a solid, just landscape thing for your note taking and for your general Bible journaling. And I honestly think, like, look, my stuff isn't here. This is a big margin. This is 4 inches probably. I mean, these are the biggest margins I've ever seen on a journaling Bible. It has spiral binding, which means it lays flat really well when the whole thing's spread out. I mean, this thing's over 20 inches. I mean, it's bigger than my green cutting mat. I mean, this is a large format. So it's really sweet. I'm excited about this, which leads me to the final part of this video, how you can use cheap journaling Bibles. I like cheap Bibles. I prefer cheap Bibles. I prefer cheap Bibles primarily for 2 reasons. Number one, I destroy every single thing I touch. The second thing is, for this very reason right here, while I'm making this video for you. And for pastors, and I'm an egalitarian. I think pastors could be men and women. But specifically on the Bible journaling, Bible note-taking side of things, I could not find, there's reviews of this Bible on YouTube. I could not find a single one by a dude or about how dudes might be using these, because the Bible journaling, the art journaling, and for women with the washi tape and the pretty fancy letterings and the stickers and all the cool things, like, that's a real thing. Don't find very many men that use that, but I know a lot of men that read their Bibles and are doing stuff in them, and there's not a single review. And I will admit to you, this kind of looks like a baby book. A little bit, feels like a baby book, but since it comes from Dayspring, it doesn't surprise me that, because Dayspring probably makes baby books. I don't know. When I was in Christian retail, we sold them. But all that to say, this is a really solid thing to use, and I think it's important to talk about the other ways that people use Bible journals. When we want to dig into Scripture, I think these kind of Bibles are a great thing. I used an English Standard Version, inductive New Testament edition for a read years ago. You can see, I've talked about this Bible before. Let's see, but yeah, you can see all the markup stuff there. I was going to preach only on the gospel passages for a full year, and I wanted to go deep and read crazy deep into them. So I bought this Bible. This Bible was like $30 back then, and I went then, did my huge, big series inside of this, and then you can see how I have it marked up right here. Gospel reading 2018 ESV. This is now on my shelf as a resource for the Gospels, for that sort of thing. That's why I love a cheap journaling Bible. If you're doing some sort of intense, in-depth, focused scripture read, go find a cheap journaling Bible. Do your read in that and devote it to that for everything. I read the Daily Office twice a day. That puts me inside of the Psalms. By this point in time in the year, you've probably seen it in my turkey buzzard, the Psalms is getting pretty kind of covered. And so what I do a lot of times is I go buy one of those Psalms scripture journals, you know, the kind that open up and you see everything. I'm starting to use this now because I'm still engaging with the Psalms on a devotional level, but my Bible, my year Bible, is getting kind of filled up. So like I've got it written right there, 2022 extra. They're great for that sort of a thing. I actually have another project I'm working on that involves the Psalms, and I'm probably going to buy another one of those and do the work on the Psalms in there so it gets its own edition, and then that edition just gets added to my shelf as a resource tool for my own work that I've done. So the advantage of these cheap journaling editions of the Bibles, like we see the full Bible, the New Testaments alone, and then I love these guys right here, the scripture journal thing, is if you want to dive down deep into a subject, go dive down deep and go grab a couple of these cheaper editions to do it in. If you're in seminary and you're taking an exegesis class, get a couple of them. I would have loved, I took an exegesis of John class. Here's the new John in the Filament Scripture Journals. I would have loved to have had 2 or 3 of these for that class I took in seminary for me just to kind of go to town on and work through instead of like thinking, okay, I'm about to destroy this Bible to save the Bible, that sort of thing. If you've ever thought about like, I need to save space in a Bible before I'm working on, maybe you want to get one of these cheap scripture journals for. So what am I using this one for? This Dayspring Illustrated Bible, the Gospels. First thing is this. I'm kind of thinking it might be a turkey buzzard replacement. I'm going to see. They offer a full Bible in NIV, and it might be a turkey buzzard replacement. I've said before that with the way I'm using Rome Research right now, I don't necessarily need all the extra pages that are at the back of the Cambridge wide margin editions. And that's why I decided to stick inside of that format for this year. And I was elated to find an NIV hardback. And that's been my 2022 Bible so far. So I'm testing it out. Not going to make a statement, but I'll let you know. But the second thing is this. I am really interested currently in the preaching and teaching ministry of Jesus. In fact, I'm kicking around the idea of doing a doctorate and starting that next year around the idea of Jesus' teaching ministry, because every time I come across that phrase that when he was done teaching, people were amazed at his authority and how it was unlike any of their leaders. I'm fascinated by that topic right now, and the best way for me to describe it is I think that Jesus is doing what I call world building, and I want to investigate that further, and the best way for me to investigate that further is a deep, intentional read of Scripture and to just kind of go research heavy on it. So I'm going to do that with that edition, and I'll probably be doing that for the rest of the year for September, October, November, and December. So at the end of the year, I'll probably do a follow-up video on this Bible and how it held up. I think the spiral binding will collapse on me pretty quick. Like I said, I destroy everything I touch. I'm not sure if that Bible would work out for my year Bible because I don't know if it could survive a year, but we'll find out for sure. But that's why I think you should use cheap journal Bibles, is when you have a specific thing that you want to research or engage or study or dwell in, or just a part of Scripture you want to use in its own unique way. I'm loving the fact that we're finding these editions broken up into subject matter and topic, not just New Testament, Old Testament, not just full Bible, not just Psalms, but we're starting to see these happen. If you're hearing me from Dayspring, if you make a minor prophets and a major prophets version of that bad boy, or you break up into the Pentateuch, my friends, you would have a Bible line on your hands then. So that's why I love cheap journaling Bibles. I want you to do me a favor. In the comments below, I want you to let me know how you can or how you do use cheap journal Bibles, especially if it's in a topical way. I would love to learn from you, and the rest of the community would love to learn from you. So I'm Chad Brooks. I'm signing off, but if you love contact like this, do me a favor. Just hit the subscribe button, hit the like, hit the bell. Every person on YouTube tells you all the things to do. So do all the things for me if you wouldn't mind. And I would love to hang out with you in the comments. I will see you back in the next video.